morning, everyone. An amazing Saturday morning is, right? It's Saturday and we are excited. Today we are enjoying our morning breakfast with everyone on YouTube and with all our YouTube viewers, right? And we are also sharing our breakfast. We are having Weet-Bix with milk. We are choosing Weet-Bix with milk throughout the duration of our pregnancy because we have a very, I can sense it's very sensitive pregnancy. But we're having our Weet-Bix with milk. Some mornings we're gonna have toast. And we're gonna some mornings share that, or some days share that during the week, right? Next week with everyone. And we are having our cup of tea. It's a choi tea. It's a New Zealand tea. It's almost like an English breakfast tea, and it's similar to the South African, almost like South African rooibos, but everyone knows South African rooibos is rooibos. You can't get rooibos anywhere else, right? Or anywhere else other than rooibos. So it's so hot, and we're still gonna enjoy it so hot, right? Because we know we can say a lot. And when we say a lot, then we oftentimes forget to enjoy our cup of tea and to enjoy the hotness of our tea. So it's one thing to enjoy your tea, and it's another thing to enjoy the tea hot. And thank you for Team AWOKH. And yeah, so everyone, there's a lot of pages out there that's Team AWOKH, and that's AWOKH. And that has got our AWOKH Business brand name, and we appreciate that a lot. That is what you call supporters. Some people sometimes say they're sometimes bringing lots of misconfusion, but what we are saying is that they are sometimes supporters. And the supporters do it exactly like that. They're a very interesting bunch of guys, and very interesting group of people. So thank you to the AWOKH accounts that have started. I viewed a few of them recently on Instagram. Yeah. And yes, Instagram. So we have reached now 10K followers. We always say for those people, if you have received from one of the marketing organizations to follow Ribea Elise, then don't just follow us to follow us. Same with the subscribers on YouTube. Don't just follow us to be, I always say AWOKH says to be there. It's one thing to be there, it's another thing to be actively there, to appear and be there, right? So that's amazingness. I have a lot of South African people on my social media pages, and a lot of people that I personally know, and none of them are reacting on my social media pages. And it's not a thing that you can call jealousy in general. Sometimes people are really busy, and many times South African people don't have Wi-Fi, but there's really people there to be there only, right? And today we are exactly going to talk about that in our breakfast talk. Why? Because I remember many years ago, I made coffee and I called them the breakfast, the tea morning Batir sisters of South Africa. South African people can act very nicely. And to all those who don't act about it, and is just there to now not be giving a false statement about someone else's account, right? So those people who are on social media who don't actively find themselves involved on your page are there because they sometimes are giving false statements. Because there's a lot going on social media. And to all of the other people, I always say that I was once the little young teenager who was making the cup of morning tea for my mama Anna and for the sisters. And when my mama Anna and the sisters got together, they had the morning cup of tea. Ribea made the cup of tea. The one wants tea, the one wants coffee, the one wants milking, the other one wants the milk hot, the other one wants the milk not hot. And we don't have a kettle, and it's cooked on the stove. And Mama Anna is not there by the age of 60 years and the day before birthday, and all the other tea ladies are celebrating their birthdays until 80 years and 90 years and 70 years old. And Ribea Elise looks at the situation, and Ribea Elise said, I have served the tea. I was the baby that blessed the mamas. How did I miss my mama in all of those blessings of sharing the cup of tea to them? How did I not, as the baby in the room, how did I not invite my mama to the years of 80 years, years of 90 years old, into the years of 70 years old, in all of those cup of teas? And such is our generation in general. It is the cup of teas, the coffees, you want the coffee hot. Someone else will stay close to the airport, so it's constantly happening. Yes, we'll stay just looking at the airport. Yes, and there's the Trump Auckland airport, and it's amazing in Auckland, New Zealand. And what we are sharing today is, so some of the people today in our generation wants the tea without the milk in. The other people want the choi tea. The other want the English breakfast tea. The next person wants the milk to be hot. The next person wants the coffee to be Nestle coffee and not Moccona. And Ribea drinks a Moccona, and they say, what's Moccona? Even today on the coffee list of it all. And some people want the water to be hot of the coffee, and other people don't want milk in their coffee. And today, Ribea was the bar lady many years ago who even served the bar teams, and the bar was full, and Ribea was the robot in the room, and Ribea has once again learned who is the mama in all of that. That was now Mama Anna, that is now maybe. The Bible says that what happened before to Jesus cannot happen again because it is finished and it happened. But what Ribea are learning in our generation is that within my bartender job, the same situation happened. Ribea was serving everyone. Where is Ribea in her season? Where is Ribea required to be at in a season? The bar was full. It was from a Thursday night until a Sunday night, many nights, from a Friday night until a Sunday morning or Sunday evening, and the bar was packed with people. And there was only one bar lady many times. I thank God for my brother Zach, because if I did not have a job, I wouldn't have had something to say today. And for the niece, because if I did not have the opportunity. But for everyone else, all of the customers, everyone who looked in, everyone who tuned in, everyone was excitedly there. The pace that you're going on sometimes in our seasons is a pace that people and that our world in our generation is learned to manipulate. And we look at one another, we don't realize how often it is that someone does not want someone else in the season or in our generation. And today, as the bartender who was that used to serve many years ago and used to do when I was at Nibblebits, and I was the trainer and I was the recruitment officer, and Nibblebits said, Ribea, this morning we need 1,000 people, and Ribea was on the cell phone. The next day, Nibblebits said, we now, a few hours after that, we now don't need the 1,000 people anymore. And Ribea was again the robot on the phone. And Ribea, now these 1,000 people need to be trained, and you're going to be the trainer. And Ribea was then training thousands and thousands of people in one packed room. And Ribea, now you're the health and safety officer, and we've got so many structures, and the company needs this. And Ribea was that. And it was many times for 2,000 Rand, right? And people said, Ribea, you're earning that money, and you are the manager. You are giving us all of these trainings. You are giving us all of these educations, and look at what they are paying you. And today with the AWOKH Business, it's the same story. Some people ran around the world to go and silence the story out. They want to make your brain tired many times, and God strengthens your brain and give you another day, and He gives you many more years, and people even still try to argue that. They even still try to argue where you find yourself at in a season, and they even still try to oppress you in that. We don't want to be harsh about it, but we know nobody can make us very harsh sometimes. And what we learn is the cup of tea, when we then want to enjoy it, and we want to own our business, and we want to sit and relax, and every person who manages our world in general knows that Ribea has given her hours to mankind. If that is what some managers requires, her business deserves to be a business-owned business that receives funds from this world, because she has really given a lot, and there's a lot of countries that has built in on it. There's a lot of countries that has had the Google in videos. There's a lot of countries that said the journey with Ribea Elise that had all of the AWOKH pages and Ribea Elise name in international countries today. And to all of those people, we say, when we want to enjoy this cup of tea, Do not disrupt or disturb it. When we have our businesses and we want it registered and we want our businesses to be financed, then go and do your proper investigation with parliamentary leaders in countries and go and find out who is Ribea Elise in person. Why does he require a business? Is a business meant to be funded? How can we support the business? Because the business is more social media, and social media is more motivational speaker, and she's more in this trend of life, and she has had that human resource experience. She and all the organizations that she has been employed at New Zealand knows. This is a human resources advisor. The organizations in South Africa knows this is what she's experienced at, and this is her career. This is what she studied. And when that whole education is complete, then you can't stand there and argue with social media people, and you give someone else a cup of tea and they make it to 80 years, and you realize that life has taught you that lesson, and still someone is trying to abuse you to give them a cup of tea rather than blessing you also in season and saying, Ribea, that this is also what is meant for your business. And that's what I want to say to the South African people who finds themselves behind the background of it, and they are the church sisters of it, and they are the 10 o'clock prayer room sisters, and they find themselves in their social medias, and they are there, but they are not there. They are underpaid. They view your stories. They learn that you are busy sharing information. They are from your community. They grew up with you. There are thousands of South Africans, and they all tend to want to ignore the fact that they ever knew this person, or that this person ever was there, or that this person ever was born in their community. And then they still continue to want to promote that. That is a church life in general. And then they will say, you get out of church, you put on your Ja Rule song, you dance around on social media, you put it on in your house, and you're the prayer sister maybe that went through that challenge. That people try to oppress, and they try to steal your cup of 80 years, your cup of 70 years, your cup of 90 years, 100 years, and they try to run around with it, wanting to promote themselves as being the better about where they find themselves in the season. To those people, you say, have an amazing breakfast Saturday with Ribea Elise. And someone said, if this baby doesn't come out talking, then I don't know, by the pace that I'm going on, the baby's definitely going to want to talk when it comes out, honestly. Let's say some college. We mix with milk only, right? And one teaspoon of sugar. What we do now, sometimes I put 1.5 teaspoons because it's too big. What we do not want our viewers to disregard is the fact that in the harshness of life reveals to us all of these things. In the harshness of this world and of the universe prepares you for all of these things that can happen around you. In the universe educates you. I've mentioned that on one of my breakfast discussions that when I went to church and I was the prophetess. They call me a prophetess, and I always say, don't call me a prophetess, just call me Ribea Elise, or call me on my name, or whatever it is. But I left it at that, and I respected them for that they have really, really honored the you in what you are doing, right? And when I was honored with that people call you the prophetess when you minister a word, right? Because I was born in church, my experience was different to someone else's experience, right? My education was different to someone else's education. My way of ministering was going to be totally different than someone else's way of ministering. My way of sensing in the presence of the universe what is happening is going to be different to someone else that is maybe in church, finding themselves in the same environment and having to sometimes want to, you can sense something and then they tend to ignore that and they go on with their normal life. With Ribea Elise, I sense something, and I'm very familiar with sensing because of that. Is when you look at my bartender Googling videos, a lot of people has watched the videos already. And a lot of people saw how packed the bar was. And a lot of people saw that I was one person. And most of those nights, I didn't get the drink wrong, right? I didn't do the most expensive ways of making a martini and a drink, there is all of those funninesses that goes into it. But the most plain and simplest drinks. And when people studied the videos and they learned that this is the type of person that they are being introduced to, then I got familiar with sensing the environment around me. That's that is the advantages of being a bartender. You get familiar with sensing. People give you an instruction, you go and you complete the instruction, and you can immediately sense the environment in where you find yourself and the type of person that you are really having to connect with or having to speak with. And that is where the church lifestyle, when I after that, when I really was baptized and all of that, and I really made a decision to really minister, not on what someone else requires me to say, right? I didn't minister on what our community wants to hear Ribea Elise say or do in a season. I ministered based on what is it that I have to say in my season. What is it that the word of God means to Ribea Elise, right? The word of the Heavenly Father, right? The presence of the Almighty. What does it mean to me as a person? What is my opinion on it? And that is where people call you a prophetess. They call you a prophetess because you can sometimes sense and you can sometimes explain it exactly in the presence of it and not in the humanness of it, right? And I have learned to understand the word in so many different ways, right? In ways that many people have already discussed amongst themselves, but they have not had that they shared it with humanity. Many people learned that the word was not only the spirituality of it, but the every reaction and judgment of mankind are sometimes being managed by the Bible, where the parliamentary leader in the countries in parliamentary houses and countries in war sit with the Bible, and the Bible are the direct instructions that they follow through that whole process, right? And I'm always educated, and I say that when you find yourself in a war country and in a war state, then do not, and you are working according to the Bible as a book in general, and according to the Bible as the instructions that were given to mankind, the challenges that mankind would have, the fact that there would be a lot of things happening on earth, that there would be countries in famine in the day, that there would be countries that are deprived by certain religious backgrounds and by certain differences amongst mankind. And when leaders sit in parliamentary houses and they sit with the word of God, because the parliamentary house, remember, doesn't only have the pastor in. The parliamentary house has the witchcraft and Goma in. The parliamentary house have the Muslim in. The parliamentary house have people that grew up in different lifestyle choices in. Many parliamentary houses are set exactly in that. And when life educated us about all of the different religions, life did not require us to now disregard and say that the church religion is now disregarded today because I want to be a Muslim. No, it is an education in life that goes hand in hand with humanity accepting one another. And some people in countries decide to study all of the different requirements of mankind and how mankind might be challenged in the universe, because the Bible, the Quran, all of those books that were written and that were left for mankind exactly explains to mankind what mankind would be challenged with on earth and how they would deal with it, because it would not be forces and human beings on earth that they are being challenged by, but it might be the different communications in the universe that forms part of the human communication, that forms part of where the human brain functions from, and a different part of the universe where the human eyes functions from, where the voice of the human being comes from, where the words of what we are saying on a daily basis and our reactions comes from. And it is not necessarily that it is a presence as a spirit, but it is maybe another communication. We used to call it aliens, and they understand life on earth differently. And these are the instructions, and the instructions is given to mankind in the Bible. And they have got different houses. In primary school, we were educated about the school colors, and the school colors are called the different houses that the different parts that manages the earth and manages mankind on earth are being managed in, right? And you have the Muslims that get their education from a different part of the universe. You have the Christian people that get their education from a different part. You have the openness of the different religions where everyone can go and learn from. There's the Jewish churches, yes, and the Jewish educations. And all of those are like teachers in the universe. And those teachers are going according to instructions many times. And when the world finds themselves in war, there's parliamentary leaders and celebrity house people that knows exactly who they're communicating to, that follows the process exactly in that. And that has not been communicated to mankind thoroughly. And some of us has felt very disadvantaged because a lot of people know exactly of the communications that there is in the universe, that mankind has to other parts of the universe, and that mankind has to follow the process many times. And the other parts of humanity didn't know the process yet. Many of us only found out recently these days about the whole process. I was a little bit odd because I found that someone in my community, Malvina, with her Aisha business, had information that was not meant to have of me, that was meant for me, but it was only meant for me in this season. And someone else from the celebrity house or somewhere in church, because he's a church pastor, sent the information to her. And other social media pages, I then learned that he was then receiving information that is relating to me. And because we grew up in the community together, because we are 1 year in birth differences, because our mamas was in one house praying, and they were in one church at one time in South Africa, and we grew up in our community together, then there was a whole manipulation happening from our household to their household. And someone shared communication to their household of me, and I didn't, after I was young, right? I was about 7 years old, and then by 10 years old, we moved from the community, and we did not have communication with, I didn't have communication with Malvina them after that, right? My sister Antoinette was still friends, and he's still very good friends with her, and I tend to go on with my day. And then I learned when I went on Instagram that this person is posting information that is relating to me and to my business and to where I found myself after my season. And I didn't realize it at first because I was at Nubbly Bucks, and the family came and they said, but Ribea, we are also looking for a job here. And I tried them also throughout the process. And I did not realize that they are having communication about me that they are not meant to have, because there's human beings that need to manage that process on earth. And I learned about it in 2020. I went to South Africa, and the South African people were acting very oddly. And I said, what's happening in the community? Why is everyone treating me so oddly? Why is the whole community so different? Why is no one talking to me? And I was in South Africa for a year, and I had traveling problems, and the government was in discussions about my name. And I then traveled back after a year to New Zealand, right? And then when I went on Instagram, then I saw Malvina is looking odd and she's sharing odd information. And then I went onto a page and I went to go and check. And then I said, okay, how does she know this information? But I know she was friends with my sister, and she maybe went to my sister's house. And no, she went to England, and I remember that whole process of it. And then I learned that she's in the Netherlands, and there's an oddness in communication, and someone in their house or concerning them are manipulating the process. And then I was a bit aggressive about it, because those things has got to do with people's lives. And when people are messing with your day, and when people are trying to manipulate the process in mankind in general, and they're trying to manipulate you as a person, that puts your life in danger sometimes. And I then went on my Facebook page and I reprimanded the situation, because I knew the situation. I was direct about it, and I was firm about it, because these discussions are relating sometimes to so much war arguments. Because I was working at a European organization in South Africa that was managed by Europeans, and I did not realize that it had to do with war discussions between Africa and the European people, apartheid discussions, and Malvina them's family came into those discussions. And Ribea didn't realize that I was employed in the process, what was really happening, because after some time, mankind finds out that that's happening, and that's happening, and that's happening. Certain people receive the information before the time, and they sometimes go and manipulate the situation. And I learned that Malvina then tried to manipulate the situation of where I was in meetings with the European managers, and those meetings and discussions and the manipulation that then almost led to my sister's family in England being endangered, and me being in New Zealand, and my whole Malvina story, the Aisha business, the AWOKH business. And I learned that the manipulation that happened was almost endangering my sister's children that is now on university in England, and was almost endangering with whatever it is that the communication was, and that political leaders sometimes try to manipulate to rule the world, and to sometimes have that they call a new world order, that they sometimes get rid of people in the world in a certain process and way. And I reprimanded the situation when I found out about it. And now a cup of coffee is not hot anymore. But what we are trying to say is, when these circumstances happen, mankind, there's management processes in the universe. And when countries like Russia and Ukraine find themselves in war, remember there's management processes that keeps them in that war discussion. And I always say that the world are being managed in general, even though it doesn't seem so. And every time a country are punished, and why Africa and India and most poverty countries are looking the way it's looking, is because every time African people are being punished in the world, then world leaders punish Africa for it. every time Indian people manipulate our social media pages or they manipulate where they find themselves in countries, then India are being punished by the world about it. The world are really being managed by a firm team of people that are sometimes very direct. And we sometimes, when we have information and we can't share it to them, then it is important that we share it to them so that there's no abuses happening in mankind, and so that these war discussions don't have to go on for years when it's discussions that we can give and share information that might relate to what the argument or what the disruption in South Africa was with the South African government and with our different families and what happened in South Africa. So yeah, that is quickly. I'm gonna take a break with this. I'm just gonna go and warm my tea, and then we can continue with this discussion just now. Sorry for that. And look at how we are sitting. Anyway, yes, amazingly, my sister said yesterday, don't share so much stuff on your YouTube. Because YouTube information is there forever. Then we said, yes, it's good that it's there forever and a day. So that people, sorry, I was just busy with the washing machine. So that people in another country can also learn. Yeah, very funny. I just went to go in quickly. Yeah, so that people will my tea. And then one thing that I want to teach, if you order cups, right, from people online, I ordered this cup. And normally the instructions would be somewhere in the package of where you order it. And I said that order a AWOKH cup. But one thing that we want to educate about these cups is when you order the cup from somewhere and they did printing on the cup, and especially when the cup has got the nitty-gritty and the funninesses of the printing on it. Then do not put these cups in the microwave. I always say, I suggested that. Is very dangerous, yes, because you can see this exactly sometimes can blow up in your microwave. So do not ever put the cups that you buy to do your printing online, whether it's the Christmas cups, whether it's the amazing cups of the season. Thank you for really following our pages and for supporting all of our businesses and for really being an inspiration, everyone. But these cups can blow up in the microwave. And therefore, when you look at a cup and you learn that the printing is done in this way, and you can feel that the cup feels thin, then when you go and warm your stuff, or when you want to warm your cup of tea or your cup of coffee, put it in a different cup, because I've learned, I don't know if I've mentioned it on my social media page before, that these cups can blow up in the microwave. So do not microwave these cups if you want to warm your cup of tea or your cup of coffee. Then rather pour the tea out into another cup and warm it, or rather warm it on the stove, because I can see this is really not microwavable and can really sometimes be dangerous. And many times people don't tell us that. So for everyone who benefits this, share the information properly, people. This is stuff that people buy in the Christmas season. And there's offices that is burned in Auckland City, and people put everything in microwaves and cups and plates in microwave. We really believe rather do the plastic containers into microwaves, right? If you warm your food at offices, warm it in plastic containers. Let that be the requirement for everyone. These dishes and stuff, the things, the way it's manufactured sometimes can be dangerous for the energy of the microwave, right? The microwave energy. We know we can't put steel in the microwave, but you never know what is hidden in a dish, and you never know the way people these days manufacture stuff. So be a bit cautious with these microwavable cups. Rather use plastic bowls and plastic cups and stuff to warm your coffee or your tea or your foods in. That's amazing. This you can sense is a real cup. Treat yourself, right? The treat yourself bowl is a real bowl. You can sense the difference. You can feel how light it sometimes is, because it's nice. It's festive. We normally buy this for people for a gift and a festive. About also says we're also selling our cup here. And we're also doing the printing on the cup. But we first learning all of the nitty-grittinesses. So do not microwave it, everyone. Do not microwave it. And what else did you wanted to say? Yeah, so when we have people like, we know that Malvina person, I mentioned their name a lot, and see, and the family has been tuned in a lot on what I was saying about the whole process and what I was explaining. So they know what they were busy with. I don't know. They know really the communications and where they might have shared information about our family that was really not accurate, or try to manipulate our family into processes that they maybe were involved in, and that whole manipulation. And I was very open and direct on my Facebook page about it. And we have to educate on our YouTube page also, because the YouTubers in America are the pastors in the world. And they sometimes, yes, they call themselves the pastors in the world. And they manage the world like that. But anyway, and they might sometimes have challenges in their country. And people finding themselves in America, that's why I said I want the American audience in our room. Because people in America might have all of these arguments and discussions in their country. And when they don't learn the process, sometimes people are in your country and they don't know that these things are happening. Many people have not been informed about a lot of things that are putting human beings in danger that can be prevented. Many parliamentary leaders listen to Ribea Elise's discussions, and then they learned that in the world in general, there was a whole miscommunication happening. And they really sometimes change their ways and reactions. And they really sometimes stay tuned to our people of color leading this generation discussion on our Facebook pages, because they really listen to how we explained with our experience, with where we grew up at, with the whole Nelson Mandela that came out in our community, with Mama Anna Philander's Mama Martha that's also from Johannesburg, and that was in the apartheid era, so much involved with the 1969 earthquake of Mama Anna that was on the road, that many leaders find themselves in the season, and that was involved in arguments and discussions in the season that relates to so much, and then they do not realize that the simple explanation of how Ribea explains it is actually what is happening in this world. It is actually the arguments and discussions that is happening in this world. And we are sometimes finding out about it in odd ways. And when we find out about it, we explain our opinion. People appreciate that so that they can discuss it where they are at. So that when there's meetings and war discussions and war arguments that can sometimes be prevented, right? Because we believe that the group of lawyers are managing these processes. And we have said that when the group of lawyers in the world manages war discussions, then they require our opinion in general, because we are the human beings that are directly involved with the dangers of wars in this world, right? So you can't, I've mentioned before that, I've mentioned it in my HSAT 2023 discussion, that you cannot have a war management process without including the normal opinion of the person in the opinion room, right? So it's fine for the lawyers to manage the process in a legislative way when there's war arguments that relates to abuses that has happened in different countries, right? And when they require countries to be punished by that, by law, right? Then in those discussions, Ribea Elise, because of my human resources background, and because of my experience that I have gained, and because of the education that I have been on, because of my spiritual background, I was then able to learn what is happening and what I sense around this whole situation that is happening in the world, and how I can then explain that to those people and that does not realize this is Ribea Elise's journey, and it involves these generations' current arguments and discussions. And therefore, our opinions cannot be disregarded. And therefore, when you get social media pages of people like Ribea Elise that you know that might be involved in the discussion somewhere in the world, then do not disregard our pages. Do not go and silence our pages out. You know, we make live streams and they don't say it sometimes in countries. They try to hide the live streams away. They try to block our live streams away because nowadays India wants to be paid about it. And then India wants to go and promote it. I always say that it's not every Indian boy, but it's the Indian companies that are marketing these 100 likes and all of these processes. By the time I've mentioned yesterday that a person get to 1,000 subscribers on their YouTube page, then go and make their video available every day. When they do a live stream video, don't require them to do a payment of some sort to a marketing company in order to have the videos viewed, you know. Don't require them to be this or this type of person for you to promote their work. So what we require of the YouTube owners, the Instagram owners, we don't disregard the fact that LinkedIn are managed very fine and well, you know. But when it comes to YouTube and Instagram, they're constantly blocking your videos. They're constantly blocking my posts, and I have seen it many times. And they don't share it when you made a live stream, you know. They don't share it to the communities. They block it out there, and they keep it out there. And they have technical people that sits and block your video the whole time. And sometimes, you know, that's very disruptive. When a person gets to 1,000 subscribers, make sure that the videos are shared on a daily basis and follow those processes. Don't require the person now to work with bloggers and collaborators for their work to be viewed by certain countries to listen into what the discussion in the world is. Share the information through, listen to know who your business people and entrepreneurs in the world are, listen to know the educative journeys that they are on, whether they are cooking a pot of food today and whether they are drinking a glass of wine on the next day on their social media page. Listen to the opinion of the people rather than disregarding our generation with so much that is happening that is so abusive, and then they silence our videos out. They silence the viewers out. They rather send messages around the world about Ribea Elise that is a totally different story, rather than listening and rather than having countries listen to Ribea Elise's opinion. They rather try to silence Ribea Elise before Ribea Elise came onto social media, right? So the world already received messages about me. You know, young people go to secondary school, they go to the sports ground, and they say messages on cell phones, and they learn that this is the way of life, and then they try to sabotage people. And Ribea Elise was one of those people that was in the conversations of this journey where international clubs play with one another, and they silence personal people's accounts out. So I know that bloggers and bloggers, they've got their place, but they need to learn to know who is your entrepreneurs, who do you listen to in season, what is the current requirement in season, and YouTubers need to follow those processes when they manage. YouTube managers and business owners need to manage the world in such a way rather than abusing the world out with all of their processes. We're just gonna have a 1 minute break. Everyone can listen to the amazing tweets. And we can do our videos for a whole day through. And we can share a lot. And we can sometimes not share a lot also. But do we really have to be silent? I always say, right? Because if Ribea Elise doesn't say it, and someone else doesn't realize that this is all of the arguments that is happening in the world, and Ribea Elise exactly knows that the world is looking like this, someone standing in a war with someone else doesn't necessarily mean that they want to stand in the war. No. Putin doesn't mean that he wants to really bomb Zelensky up, but he's sometimes doing it, but he really sometimes doesn't want to do it. Zelensky doesn't really mean that he really wants to sit there and be bombed down the whole time about it, you know? And the people in Russia and Ukraine really doesn't want to go through that. And it really looks like it's happening, but it's really sometimes not meant to happen in that way. And it's not meant to be a war. I called it a discussion, and people had a good laugh about it. I called it an argument, because it's really sometimes that you know what, when you look at the whole situation in the world, and then you can listen to what is it that everyone is saying concerning the situation. A lot of films has been written before the Russia-Ukraine war started. And I've watched all of the films, and I'm a person that when I grew up, I was sitting in front of television, and I watched every American film. And the grandma said, while I was sitting, the grandma said, children, one day, these things are going to happen in the world. You all need to watch the television. Mama Anna said, Ribea, you sit by this grandma. The grandma was swearing and drinking, and the children was drinking. And Mama Anna was going to the prayer aunties. Mama Anna said, you sit by the grandma. And while I was sitting there, grandma reprimanded the children. And the grandma always told the children, please, the world is looking like this movies. And if y'all don't listen today, then y'all are sometimes gonna not realize it. And let me just fix this quickly. Let me just fix that. I think our battery is just gonna do that. I think it's the hotness of the sun. And the grandma was saying, if y'all don't watch these films today, the world is looking like this. And this is exactly the argument that is happening in the world. And listen to the films. And that's how I learned that the films of the wars was arguments that started many years ago. We know that Russia had wars before that, Russia and Ukraine. We also know that it could have been prevented by many political leaders. And before our phone goes off and our battery goes off, because I think our battery is going to go up, and what we require in processes like that, we've mentioned the law teams, we're going to discuss that firmly, and we have explained it thoroughly. But when it comes to wars, and to the United Nations teams, and to the teams that manages the political leadership in the world, and they manage the war in general, they need to manage the process in such a way that it's non-abusive to humanity, we always say, and that they investigate the situation in the completeness of it, rather than looking at the situation of one bombing the other one down and Zelensky sitting still while being bombed down. Where they need to look at the completeness of everything and of the argument in the world, because everyone knows that the whole world is full of mafia rulings, and that includes every political leader, and the political leaders knows about it. And when it becomes that kidnappings and women abuse is every one of them that are guilty of it, every country is guilty of it, and every school education and the lawyers and the whole team is so guilty. Now Putin is standing there, Zelensky is sitting there, Sudan is sitting there, Turkey and Syria was earthquake out about it, and it's a whole chaoticness in this world. North Korea and South Korea wants to also start the whole time. China and Japan wants to start the whole time. Then you do not even still start China and Japan, because remember, the Chinese government are also even managing the office environment and the discussions with the lawyers in America about these, about these wars that are happening. So they are constantly trying to get the war to end, right? And not to stop, to start again, to end the war. People say on television, victimize. Ribea say, not victimize. People, this has happened, and I always say, be direct in what you say. Don't tell people that you are going to be the victim of this and that. Don't share that word victimize on television screens, because that word means someone else needs to be victimized. And especially if the word is there, some people in the universe, some parts of the universe only listens. Some parts, Ribea says, can only sense because I've been a bartender. Other parts of the universe listens when you pray. Another part of the universe read and it says victimize, and then it means victimize mankind. Ribea says you do not put the word victimize on television screens. You do not instruct another part of the universe to victimize mankind. We need to get all of these processes right, and we need to listen to how our managers in television and in radio and in all of these lifestyles, how are they managing the process? When you tell someone stop the war, you tell someone else to start it somewhere else, because stop, we were educated, is a stop street where a car drives on our roads. The Bible explains all of these things to us, but we need to learn about it in a human way rather than a spiritual way, right? The Bible says on that day, Jesus was crucified in human being, and he was only alive in the spiritness of it. And the Bible says, but that process is finished, and on that day you listen in the humanness of it, because that process is finished, where the human was crucified by it, and you had to listen in spirit, and the spirit was recognized in different countries, right? The Bible says you listen in the quietness of it. Yes, that is the sound of the spirit. That is only not the spirit, but the communications in the universe. Because remember, those communications are what the Bible calls God itself in the book of Revelations, that has the many eyes, that is the many cars on the road with the many wheels, that knows everything that happens on earth, because he has designed earth himself. He's maybe a part of the universe, and he's maybe God himself over mankind and over the whole universe in general. And the Bible educates mankind about that whole process. And the Bible requires us, when it comes to war discussions, to not only think of it as a process that is now happening in people that wants to sit in there. We need to find ways to learn, to know how to relay information, how to communicate on television properly, how to not manipulate television or mankind or countries, because mankind has learned to manipulate one another a lot. So before we complete today with this discussion, I know we can say a lot, and I know we're very on point with it, but we have to listen to how is it that we write? How do we relay information in this universe? Because there's a post box for everyone, and everyone's information goes in there. And Malvina stole Ribea's information out of the post box because a celebrity told her, or maybe a church pastor told her that information all these years goes to Ribea Elise's house, and that's where Ribea Elise's family find themselves at. And Malvina stole the information and she put it on her Instagram AWOKH Business page. And Ribea Elise says, but I am all of that, and you are wearing out of my cupboard, and I've got all of these clothes in my cupboard that I got from my sister in the year 2014, 2013, and in the year 2021, you put it on your social media page, and you wear every pants exactly like I have. How do you then have communication into my house that is now really not you just doing it because you're doing it, but it is someone relaying information to you? And in that way, we require mankind to relay information in the right way. And we require teams of people that work with these processes of human beings on earth. We require teams of people that work with these processes of human beings on earth to manage the processes correctly. So that's non-abusive to our generation, and so that we are not so disruptive, and so that